border czar Tom Homan is now saying that the efforts to carry out mass deportations will not be all we will witness with this campaign. Now, he's now suggesting the Trump administration will also investigate the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations, and other groups behind the effort to facilitate mass illegal immigration. Watch this.
I tell you what, the Trump team coming to town, we're going to take control January 20th, and people are going to be held accountable. We're going to be very transparent. We're going to get behind. What does the United Nations have to do with this open border crisis? Who in the administration, the Biden administration, opened the doors on this humanitarian crisis? What NGOs were involved in this? We're going to be very transparent to American people, and we're going to tell them the truth what happened on this border. Again, by design, and we're going to let the American people know who was involved, why, and hold them accountable.
Now, look, I've, of course, done my own investigations into the programs to facilitate mass migration. I personally went down to Panama. I personally went into Mexico. I personally went to the different facilities that are facilitating this. I went to the migrant camps. I went to the Indian tribe territories. I've seen this with my own eyes. I documented it, and I showed it to all of you. What is happening right now with this entire, migrant crisis is that it is facilitated. This is not an organic crisis. A lot of this is being facilitated by NGOs. The non-governmental organizations are working, for the most part, under agreements with the United Nations. They're on the payroll. They're in the public documents of the United Nations. The United States has made agreements with the United Nations to carry this out. One of the big ones being the Global Compact for Migration. That's one of the big programs that our government has agreed to that is facilitating this entire operation. Now, our own tax dollars are being used to fund a lot of what we're watching. The giving of money to the illegal aliens to facilitate their movement, the money being used to pay for the buses to facilitate the movement, the medical programs, the food programs, the housing programs, that is your tax dollars hard at work. There was an entire system that had been set up to manufacture this crisis. And again, this thing is going to be what's going to be investigated now. A lot of this is technically not even a secret. There are public reports on this from the United Nations. They have public documents on it. Now, it's not being reported much in the American news media. Ask yourself why. Because it is public, and anybody who says it gets attacked, by the way. But the public does need to know, I believe, which is why, of course, I took some pretty big efforts to expose it, which I did. Now, we'll see what comes out from this. We will very likely see a government-level investigation now. And very likely, folks, yet again, what we've been saying right here on the show the whole time is going to be shown to the world. Now, on that note also, at least according to what's being said publicly, the first wave of mass deportations under these policies is going to take aim at criminal aliens. That's illegal immigrants who have committed crimes in addition to illegally entering the United States. And with that, we're also now starting to see the details on crime and on illegal immigrant gang members. New numbers coming out from New York give a small picture of what this could look like. New York Post said this: there are over 58,000 illegal immigrants who are convicted felons or facing criminal charges roaming New York City, and close to 670,000 across the country. Startling new data obtained by the Post shows. They note that of the nearly 760,000 illegal border crossers living in the Big Apple the feds were aware of as of November 17, a jaw-dropping 58,626, that's about 7.7% of them, were either previously convicted of crimes or had criminal charges pending, according to U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency data. And of the 58,626 migrants with rap sheets, it says 1,053, nearly 2%, are suspected or known gang members, according to the agency. That's also likely a drop in the bucket, though. In Massachusetts, folks, local officials are now pointing out that the criminal alien population in the United States is larger than the entire population of Boston. That's around 660,000 non-U.S. citizens with criminal histories. They brought in more convicted criminals than there are citizens of entire U.S. cities. And while some states and cities notably are getting preparations ready to block deportations, again, California is going to be blocking them. Other states going to be trying to be blocking them. Other states and cities, they're going the other way. Other states and cities are preparing to assist the Trump administration in the deportations. In Utah, for example, Governor Spencer Cox, he has announced that the state will work with the incoming Trump administration on deportations. Fox reported, quote, in a release Tuesday, Cox said the Utah Department of Public Safety and the Utah Department of Corrections will work together in coordination with federal, state, and local agencies to, quote, identify, incarcerate, and deport more illegal immigrants who have committed crimes and pose a threat to public safety. It also notes in Oklahoma, right, local officials are preparing to assist in the deportation of illegal immigrants currently in the state's prison. Washington Examiner notes there are around 526 known illegal immigrant criminals in the state's prison, already incarcerated. And the state already is paying around $36,000 every single day to house these illegal immigrant criminals. And as the local plan is to work with the Trump administration to have the criminals deported before their sentences end so that the state and American taxpayers will no longer have to pay for them, right? We'll find out what happens with this, but this is now what's taking place, folks. The first wave is going to be all the criminal aliens, the illegal immigrant criminals and gang members, and very likely as that happens, you're going to be watching what these individuals were doing when they were living in the United States on your tax dollars. Now, in other news, Israel and Hezbollah, they were able to reach a ceasefire, but the war with Hamas is still ongoing. And that war has a lot to do with the Israeli hostages that were taken by Hamas terrorists at the beginning of the conflict during the October 7 attacks. Israel has been saying, let them go, and the war ends. And they're not doing it. And now what's happening? Well, Donald Trump has given Hamas, the terrorists, he's given them an ultimatum. He says they have until he comes into office to release all of them. And these are his exact words. Trump said this: everybody is talking about the hostages who are being held so violently, inhumanely, and against the will of the entire world in the Middle East, but it's all talk and no action. Please let this truth serve to represent that if the hostages are not released prior to January 20, 2025, he says, the date that I proudly assume office as the President of the United States, quote, there will be all hell to pay in the Middle East, and for those in charge who perpetrated these atrocities against humanity. Those responsible will be hit harder than anybody has been hit in the long and storied history of the United States of America. Release the hostages now. Now, in other words, Trump is saying, release them all or we're going to utterly destroy you. Speaking not only, it seems, to Hamas, but to any leader within the Middle East that's involved with this, because he's saying the Middle East, not specifically Hamas. Now, some of this may also tie to Iran. Iran being one of the main sponsors of terror groups, Iran being the country that will pay off the families of Hamas terrorists if they kill an Israeli, and so on. Iran is one of the main players in this. And it's not clear what Trump's response is going to be, but given that Iran is also not just a key sponsor of terrorism, but also that Iran is accused right now of making assassination plots against Trump, notably when he's on the campaign trail. Remember, that's why Trump was asking Biden for presidential level protection, because he was getting information from the FBI saying Iran wanted to assassinate him. It's likely that Trump could take very strong actions against the entire resurgence of terrorism. And that's not just Hamas. That's every group tied to it. That's every nation tied to it. Iran, China, notably, are two of the big players in this. The CCP notably meeting with the leaders of the Palestinian Authority right before the attacks took place. Well, everyone, that's all for tonight. Thank you for joining us. And as always, please take care of yourselves, stay informed, and stay free.